Today on CityCast Boise, COVID was the breaking point for a lot of service industry workers, but how are they doing now? I'm talking with local bartender Narelle Bond about the state of tending bar downtown, and she tells me about bad customer behavior and why wages need to go up. Plus, I find out, are Boiseans good tippers? It's Thursday, May 25th. I'm Emma Arnold, and this is what Boise's talking about. Hi, Narelle. Welcome to CityCast Boise.
Hello, Emma. Thank you so much for having me.
You did this kind of informal poll with some of your bartender friends downtown. And let's just start with that. What are you hearing from other bartenders?
Well, right now, I know that a lot of bartenders in downtown Boise are particularly frustrated with the city. The way that construction is happening, it's such a short sort of radius of blocks downtown, and it's blocking streets and parking in multiple locations. I know that that is an issue that has been frustrating a lot of downtown bartenders.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I've heard from a couple friends at the Neurolux that their business is down, that these are like COVID level, like getting kind of worried things. What else are you hearing from people?
I know that most bartenders are happy to be recovering from Treefort. It usually takes a few months because it tends to be a very busy time of year. And now we are getting into summertime, which is nice. But from what I hear, a lot of bartenders downtown seem to get the sense that people have sort of forgotten how to act when they are back out in bars after COVID times.
Yeah, I had a lot of friends who had been service workers for, 15 years. And during COVID, where they were like, the way people are acting down here, I'm done. I'm absolutely done. So it didn't improve. People still haven't quite figured it out, huh?
It has slightly. I would say a lot of people that are moving in from out of town. In Boise, there tends to be some complaints about our population growth. But I've actually heard from some bartenders that people are bringing sort of the polite manners that they've learned in other places to downtown Boise when they are going out, which is really nice, especially when it comes to things like tipping.
Yeah. Let's talk about the money part of this. So in general, do you think Boise bartenders the wages are good, or is there a lot of work to do there?
I think that there is a lot of work to do in terms of bartender wages being paid by the employers appropriately. So I know that some bars, that is absolutely the case. For example, I work at 10th Street and all of the bartenders are paid a living wage in addition to tips. But I know that a lot of the more corporate places around downtown are still paying the minimum wage for servers and bartenders in Idaho, which is as low as $2.35 an hour.
Wow, $2.35 an hour. And the expectation is you're more than making that up in tips, but that can't be true. $2.35. I mean, you can't even buy a stick of deodorant with that. So.
Right. What is this, the 90s?
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, right, the expectation and the reason why the state has not changed the policy, the law, is because the expectation is that servers and bartenders will make up the rest of their wages in tips, which is not always the case. And there's not really a mechanism of enforcement to make sure that the employers are making up for the lack of wages made in tips.
Are those bars having a hard time filling open positions? Like, are you seeing a lot of vacancy or a lot of job listings for bartenders downtown?
Sure. So I think there are a lot of bars downtown that are still sort of in a pinch to hire post-COVID. Like you were saying earlier, a lot of hospitality industry professionals sort of fled the industry during and after COVID. And so a lot of service staff right now is composed of people who did not flee, who have been there for a long time, and then a lot of sort of more green staff.
So have you ever heard, I mean, because of the low wages and, a lot of the bars downtown are owned by a handful of the same people. Do you ever hear any murmurs about unionizing?
Yes. I know a few individuals who have attempted to unionize, but labor laws in the state of Idaho and just the practices of the service industry working people so many hours. The combination of those things, it has made it really difficult to unionize. And also in the state of Idaho, there's sort of this thought process that people have about unions and this sort of anti-union attitude sometimes. And I think that hospitality industry professionals have had a hard time combating that.
Does Boise tip well? Is it a good tipping city?
Yeah.
I wish people could see your face right now. Trying to be a diplomat here.
I am trying to be a diplomat. Yes and no. I would say overall, Boise does tend to be very generous. But there are still some people, particularly in generations that were used to tipping 10 or 15% in the 90s, that don't consistently tip the standard 20%, because 20% is the standard, not just because of service, but because in the state of Idaho, making up for the fact that employers only have to pay $2.35 an hour, that should be the standard. 20% everywhere you go, regardless of how the service is. People still have to pay their bills, and going out is sort of a privileged thing to do. And it should be the expectation that tipping is built into the budget when you are going out to a bar.
Yeah, I hear people say when you talk about raising wages, people will be like, oh, well, I already tip 20%, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, so guess what? You're already paying for that. You know what I mean? Why are you paying for that instead of the employer? Why, as a customer? And they're like, well, if they raise wages, they're going to have to raise the prices. It's like, you're already paying those prices if you're tipping decent. So
exactly. And, with the caveat that most of Boise is incredibly generous and does make sure to be cognizant of that when they're going out to bars.
Let's talk etiquette, best practices. How can people be better customers for you?
Sure. Well, when you first walk into a bar and the bartender or any staff there says hello to you, maybe say hello back and acknowledge that there's a person talking to you. And I think that's good advice for just everyday life as well. Especially right now with door people, because there are so many brand new people to the service industry, including those people working at the door. Even if you are well over 21, if someone asks you for your ID, just show it to them. There are a lot of brand new people who have never had to check IDs before, and it's good practice for them. And you could be one of the people that's making their day easier instead of the 10 other 50-year-olds who have made their life more difficult that night.
Well, you've been a bartender for 15 years. Mm-hmm. How would you describe Boise's bar scene currently?
I think the bar scene is great. In terms of the people who work there, we do have quite a lovely little community. And I would say it's a pretty great and supportive community in terms of locals and regulars, and it's very welcoming. And it really feels like more of a community than just a bunch of randos getting drunk together.
Well, we'll end on this. Have you heard any good gossip lately? Is there any good Boise gossip you can tell me?
Ooh, any good Boise gossip?
Yeah, you can think for a second if you need to. Anything you overheard or anything anybody told you?
Oh, sure. There's some great new spots opening downtown. So,
you tell us. Yeah.
If you start paying attention a little bit more as you're walking around, you'll notice some pretty historic buildings that are going through some renovations that some new bars and restaurants will be opening in. The Avery building is being redone by the people who own Little Pearl. So the old Ice Bouquet bar, that's going to be a new spot that's opening probably at the end of summer. That's going to be very cool. The Voodoo Cellar is really neat. It's where Old Space Bar used to be. And there's a lot of comedy shows happening there lately.
Well, people can come see you at 10th Street, right? If they want to come get a drink. And then if they want to see you do comedy, sounds like they can stop by Voodoo Cellar.
Absolutely.
And Mad Sweet and kind of all over town. You've been all over the place. So, but thanks, Narelle. We appreciate you coming on and giving us the lowdown on the state of Boise bartending right now.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.
And here's some news to know today. KTVB is reporting that a Caldwell High School student just landed the opportunity of a lifetime. Nick Mendez, along with 2 other Idaho students, has just been selected to intern for NASA. Mendez is a member of Caldwell High's robotics team and says he's excited to, quote, represent not just Caldwell, but all my heritage and my community, to represent the Hispanic and Latinx people. That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend? Leave us a review and subscribe to our Hey Boise newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning for our weekly news roundup. Bye.